You are listening to the Beyond Believing podcast. I am your host, Katie Ann. I am a certified life coach, a divorced mom to 5 amazing children, and I am here to share some love and encouragement with you about healing and moving on post-divorce as a Christian woman. Stick around after the show for some details on how we can work together. You are listening to the Beyond Believing podcast, episode number 28. All right, friends, welcome to a new series I am calling Lessons from the Father. I had on my mind, the last couple of weeks or so, things that I really feel like he has been showing me and teaching me. And as I've been sharing more of my story with others, it has caused me to reflect quite a lot on not just my journey of faith, but things that I've been through and things that I really feel like God has taught me. And I think he's trying to teach all of us, quite honestly, as I've been getting to know the Bible better and studying it. If you don't know, I'm going to school to study biblical theology, which has been absolutely fantastic and amazing. I have just enjoyed and poured myself into each of these lessons. And as I actually was complaining with my really good friend about how much reading I have to do every single week and how I don't know how I'm ever going to get it all done, she was like, well, is there a way you can skim or summarize or something? And I'm like, I'm sure there is, but I don't want to. I just want to consume the content and really understand it. And I just truly enjoy it. It is such good information to learn. And a lot of it is books you would not normally read and learn from. And so I am just really thoroughly enjoying that. But it has required me, quite honestly, to learn a lot, which has been fantastic. I love learning. I really do. But it has caused me to reflect on what are some of the things that I really feel like God has taught me and showed me over the last, 5 to 10-ish years. I've really taken this journey very seriously on becoming this woman of God I believe that he's created me to be. And I believe he's created each of us to be somebody specific. He has a plan and purpose for each of us. And I have really tried to seek that out and really become that person and really focus my life on that. So I came up with these things that I feel like he has really been teaching me. So I'm going to share them with you. This week, I'm specifically talking about accountability. In 1 Corinthians chapter 4, verses 1 and 2, Paul is talking to, the Corinthians, and he says, "This is how one should regard us, the apostles, as servants of Christ and stewards of the mysteries of God. Moreover, it is required of stewards that they be found faithful." I just really loved this because I believe in one way we are all stewards of something. And if we proclaim ourselves to be followers of Christ, we are required as such to be his servants. We might not be assigned to be stewards of his mysteries of God, but we are stewards over something. And first and foremost, I believe that is ourselves. Because I believe that when we master ourselves, it is so much easier for us to master and steward over others. But if we can't even steward ourselves, then how is it that we think he's going to add to that? It's like the story of the talents. He's not going to give you more if you don't do something with what you already have. And I believe it first starts with us. And as I was thinking about accountability, this is really a 2-part attribute or a characteristic that I put together. And it really requires humility and confidence in accountability because we don't often want to take responsibility for what it is we've chosen to do because it requires us to be humble. We have to humble ourselves in order to take responsibility for a mistake we've made or something that we have done, either good or bad, and to pass on, the praise to God when it has glorified him, or the acceptance that, our own mistakes, our own humanness got in our own way or in the way of others and caused harm, but then a confidence in an ability to do better. I'm going to go into that later, but what I want to start out with is it's really, really easy for us to point fingers of blame. And it's easy for us to point out in other people what it is we see that they're doing wrong, but it's not always very easy for us to acknowledge how we're contributing to that. And one of the quotes I actually shared today on my story, there's a woman named Byron Katie who is kind of known as the thought leader about teaching about thoughts, but she shares really amazing little insights that just kind of hurt your brain a little bit. And today she says, what I don't like about others matches what I don't like about myself. And then she says, test it for yourself. I'd love to hear from you. I share this because we so quickly see in other people the flaw. It's like the mote in the beam. We so quickly see in somebody else that something's going on when really we've got usually our own issue here. We're just kind of avoiding and trying to mask over. But if we point it out somebody else, it doesn't require us to focus on ours. In Matthew, Christ is addressing the Pharisees and Sadducees. They're talking to him about what they have noticed. It says, okay, I'm just going to read this. Matthew 15, and this is verses 1-7. Then Pharisees and scribes came to Jesus from Jerusalem and said, why do your disciples break the tradition of the elders? For they do not wash their hands when they eat. They're like pointing fingers. Hey, your disciples aren't doing and following the law, right? Okay, so verse 3. He answered them, and why do you break the commandment of God for the sake of your tradition? For God commanded, honor your father and your mother, and whoever reviles father or mother must surely die. But you say, if anyone tells his father or mother, what you would have gained from me is given to God, he need not honor his father. So for the sake of your tradition, you have made void the word of God. You hypocrites! Well did Isaiah prophesy of you. So he says, basically, you are asking and saying that my disciples aren't doing it, but you also do not follow your own traditions. You're not following the law because you're giving yourself an exception. And this is what we do. We give ourselves exceptions and excuses and tolerances. And this is really ironic that we do this for the behaviors that we don't want to own up to. And then we give ourselves such heavy judgment and shame and guilt for the behaviors we do recognize. And neither one of those is godly. So just want to point that out. Humility requires us to have self-reflection without judgment. How am I causing my own suffering, or what am I doing to contribute, are some questions you can ask yourself to reflect. But that doesn't mean you are bad. I'm going to come back to that again also. But while we're in conflict, or when we believe that something's gone wrong, when we're really quick to point out something in somebody else, just to keep us honestly from having to self-reflect, we can seek to understand, start getting curious. How might they be right? Now, there are a lot of times people say things that might strike a little nerve for you. And that is just a little attention seeker. Something they pointed out struck a chord because somewhere there's some truth in that. And that takes a lot of humility to acknowledge. But it also requires that you reflect and acknowledge that without judgment and shame and guilt and blame, because that's where, Satan wants you to go. But if you're just curious, how might I be wrong? How might they be right about this thing? Or how am I doing what I am accusing them of? Is there some truth to what we're both trying to do or say? Are we both just coming at it from a different perspective or from a different lens? And when we're willing to be curious about that, we don't have to get defensive or guarded or justified. We can just allow a little bit of curiosity and understanding, and then you can address conflict. So de-escalate any of that conflict, basically. And I understand we live in an era of subjective truth. I think Nikki Gumbel was that shared that we live in what's called a post-truth era. You hear a lot of people refer to your truth. In reality, your truth is just your thoughts and your perspective, because you create whatever you believe. Speaking your truth means sharing what's going on for you. And this is a really, really wonderful concept to learn when you understand that your truth is not actually the hard and fast truths of the world for everyone. It's subjective to you. And you absolutely should share your truth with others. You should share your feelings, your thoughts, what's happening for you, what your feelings are, and what you're experiencing and struggling with. That's vulnerability. That's authentic. When you understand that's not true for everyone and it's not their responsibility. It's okay for you to say, this thing you said or did created this specific experience in my mind. I'm having a thought. My thought is about what you said. And this is why it's subjective. Because if it was a fact, everyone interacting would have the exact same experience. But that isn't what happens. That's why it's not a fact. That is why your truth is not absolute truth. Because there can be a room full of people having and listening to a speaker, sharing a message, and everyone takes something different from it. Everyone has a different experience. Everyone listening to this podcast is thinking their own thoughts and having their own conclusions about it. Now, are there a lot of evidence about people who agree the same? Absolutely. That is absolutely true. There are a lot of people who you're going to find agree with you, but we also find what we're looking for. So personal integrity demands that we're honest with ourselves first. This means building self-awareness. This means understanding that I'm creating an experience based off of what somebody else said or did for myself. Do I want to keep doing that? Why am I doing that? What is actually happening? What did that person actually say? I'm going to come back to that also, but this comes into personal integrity of you must know yourself and be honest with yourself about who you are. Address the beam in your eye. Stop pointing fingers and just point in the mirror. Okay? Look in yourself in the mirror, owning your mistakes and working to correct them and repair as necessary, including, first of all, with yourself. We are not inherently bad. I mean, we are inherently bad, but that's a whole other thing. But we're not bad when we make a mistake. Okay? But we can be, and we often are, wrong at times. We do make mistakes. Learn to apologize to yourself and forgive yourself with God's help and guidance. And this is actually the best way to start apologizing and forgiving others genuinely. Have curiosity with yourself. When you're having an experience and your own truth and you're saying, speak your truth, write it out. I'm going to come back to that also. That helps you identify that. But this concept requires you to reflect on your consistent thoughts, feelings, and actions and how you show up for yourself and others in the world. And then you bring all of that to God and allow Him to teach you His truth. And then you apply it in your life. This is humility in action, what it looks like. And then you have confidence in God's ability to show you, teach you, and make you His. He will show you how you can be more accountable for yourself and your life. And He will show you how He's using you and your weaknesses to His benefit. He will shape you, heal you, improve you, strengthen you, and use you if you will let Him. You've got to cast out all the negativity, all of the willingness of trying to be right and have it be your way and justification for yourself, and just let Him show you. Okay, in Ephesians 4, verses 1-3, this is Paul. He says, I therefore, a prisoner for the Lord, urge you to walk in a manner worthy of the calling to which you have been called, with all humility and gentleness, with patience, bearing with one another in love, eager to maintain the unity of the Spirit in the bond of peace. You got to be humble and willing. But he says, walk in a manner worthy of the calling to which you've been called. You have been called to this earth to do something. Walk in a way that's honorable, worthy of that calling. But that requires you to be pretty honest with yourself and take some accountability and allow God to show you what's going on in your heart. We're going to talk about that here in a second. But right now I want to talk about facts and how do you know then what is truth, Katie? If my truth isn't truth of the world, then what is it? But this is what you have to be willing to look for and not just your perception of them, because we are walking around with our own biases, our own interpretation of everything, our own understanding, our own beliefs about what is and is not, and what should and should not be. When we are looking for facts, you have to be willing to ask yourself, how am I wrong? I already said this when we're talking to somebody else, but what else is true in the world? What might I be missing? And what am I not seeing or understanding? So what are facts? Facts are direct quotes, word for word verbatim, things you can quote directly. That is a fact. It's not a summary or your interpretation of what somebody said or did or thought or felt. Those are not facts, but that is what our brain tells us are facts. This is why it's really important for us to be aware of and learn how to understand our brain, because like the Bible teaches us to take every thought captive, because we are constantly being deceived by ourselves, by our heart, by the world. So direct quotes. It is not your summary of what they said or your interpretation. Circumstances are facts, like circumstances that you can prove with everybody's going to agree on that. Like, I am alive. I am a woman. I am a human. I'm a mother. I am in this room. I am currently recording this podcast. Those are factual circumstances. It is not he is hard or difficult to deal with. It is not she is sensitive. Those are not facts. While there's a lot of evidence for you to believe that, you have also been spending your time collecting evidence to support that fact in your mind. So you have to be willing to see how might you be wrong. Facts are very boring, to put it plainly. They're not dramatic. No one's going to get excited over the facts that you have to share, okay? They're not emotion-filled. They're not full of absolutes like always or never. Okay, you know you're in thought land when you start saying always or never, or really big or really small, or sometimes or maybes. Okay, dramatic words, emotion-filled words are not facts. So when you're struggling to identify facts, write down whatever it is, the story that's in your head. What's the truth you're telling you is happening in your life right now? And don't filter it. Just like word vomit, like you're dumping on your best friend, okay? You're venting. This is your story and your truth, and there are facts to it, and there are legitimate pieces of it. This is your truth, and you do want to understand what are the facts here, because that helps you move forward productively. When we stay stuck in the emotion-filled drama, we get stuck in the dirty pain. We get stuck in that thought spiral downward that does not lead to anything productive. You actually start to feel worse. So don't filter it. You do need to know what the facts are. You do need to address you've got something going on. Doesn't make it all wrong or bad. This is just the work to get it in. All of your drama, all of the feelings, everything you've been telling yourself, you want to write it all down. Now you're going to reread it and circle the facts. I was in this room, or I was at work, or what very, very boring sentences, okay? I have a child. Very boring sentences. Everything else is mostly your brain drama, aka what I call the enemy trying to get you to focus on things outside of your control or to keep you distracted from what God wants you to see. Now, I've shared this before, but the most powerful prayer I've learned to say is, Lord, show me where I am being deceived. Open my eyes to your truth and what you have for me. I'm going to share in another episode a little bit about this opening your eyes. This has come up so much for me the last couple of weeks in my Bible study. So I'm not going to go into it right now, but this is really important for you to be able to see and recognize the Lord in your life versus the world and Satan trying to distract you. You can have confidence in God and his plan for you and in his ability and willingness to create it. I was reading this last week, the story of Joseph of Egypt in Genesis, and this was, I think, really powerful understanding and a great example of humility and confidence in God. So it's in chapter 40, verse 8. This is when Joseph is in prison and he interprets the dreams of the baker and the cupbearer, they're lamenting to him. They've had these terrible dreams and there's no one there to interpret them for him. And in verse 8, Joseph says, "Do not interpretations belong to God? Please tell them to me." He submits and understands that God is the one who has the power, but he also has that power in him and his ability to use and call upon the power of God to interpret it for them. And then chapter 41, verse 16, when he is telling the Pharaoh about it, the Pharaoh is telling him that he knows Joseph's been able to interpret dreams. And Joseph answered Pharaoh, "It is not in me. God will give Pharaoh a favorable answer." He points again to God and his ability. He knows that God has given that. It's God in him, not his own abilities. That is humbleness and confidence in God. I shared a few weeks ago that we were often the cause of our own suffering, but be really honest with yourself about what decisions you're now making or you have made in the past that are creating the suffering you're experiencing. This is taking accountability for your life, and this is how you can allow other people to be who they are. You don't have to expect them to be someone they are not capable of being or who they do not want to be. We are often disappointed when people do not do what we want them to, even though we know they're not capable of doing that. And that includes ourselves. So if you're not able, this is why it starts with you. If you're not able to take accountability for your life and have realistic expectations for yourselves, it doesn't mean you have to stay there. We build self-discouragement and despair when we do the same thing. But you don't have to accept that this is your limitation. Absolutely not. That's not what I'm saying. You don't have to stay there. Just recognize this is where I currently am. Am I asking too much that I don't have yet? I do not have yet. And then when we can show that to ourselves and be really honest with ourselves, we can do that for other people. But we can't do it for other people if we haven't learned how to do it for ourselves first. But this is where humility and confidence in God comes in. Bring those struggles to Him. Bring your weaknesses. Be humble. Let Him show you and shape you because He will. And it is through experiences, opportunities to practice becoming. I had this thought the other day that this is life training. Training your brain is a lot like training your body physically. Chapter 1. So it's 1 Peter chapter 1, verses 3 through 8. I was reading this quite a while ago, and it just was so powerful to me that I wrote it down and kept it, and I keep it on my fridge because this is what he says. His divine power has given us everything we need for a godly life through our knowledge of Him who called us by His own glory and goodness. Through these, He has given us His great and precious promises, so that through them you may participate in the divine nature, having escaped the corruption in the world caused by evil desires. For this very reason, make every effort to add to your faith goodness, and to goodness knowledge, and to knowledge self-control, and to self-control perseverance, and to perseverance godliness, and to godliness mutual affection, and to mutual affection love. For if you possess these qualities in increasing measure, they will keep you from being ineffective and unproductive in your knowledge of our Lord Jesus Christ. What? Is that not mind-blowing? What else is mind-blowing to me is love is last on this list. And I'm going to share about that in another episode. But of all these characteristics in this list, they all lead to love. But just like training your body is physically uncomfortable, you get sore, your body aches, you have to discipline yourself to stick to a routine. And then you have to feed your body appropriately so that it can continue doing it. Your brain training is the same. It is uncomfortable. Characteristics, character building is uncomfortable. You are in training. You are learning. I had just this light bulb moment the other day that I shared this before, we ask for things and just think God's going to plant it right in front of us. But He gives us opportunities to create and become along the way. We have to build characteristics and become the person able to do those things. This is brain training. Humility, accountability, and confidence is a character. It is character building. Psalm 12:2 tells us, everyone utters lies to his neighbor with flattering lips and a double heart they speak. What are you harboring in your heart? And by the way, for those of you who don't know, I'm reading from the ESV version. I like that one. I also do the NIV version. That's my Bible in a Year version, is the NIV version. But this is verse 2, chapter 12 of Psalm chapter 12. And this is interesting to me because he says, what are you harboring in your heart? Is it God? The fruits of His Spirit? Cleaning all of that up requires consistent effort and work. That is the training. That's the learning. You have to feed your heart appropriately with the Word of God, with reliable biblical truth. And then he shares in verse 6, For the words of the Lord are pure words. In the NIV version, it says flawless. I think that's amazing. Like silver refined in a furnace on the ground, purified 7 times. And I'm actually going to read you the NIV version of this as well because I love it so much. So the NIV version of Psalm 12:6 says, "And the words of the Lord are flawless, like silver purified in a crucible, like gold refined 7 times." The words of the Lord are flawless. And this is purified and refined. That is, friends, the work. Being purified and refined is that uncomfortable effort you have to continue to put in to be aware of what's going on in my heart. Be accountable to yourself. Be humble to God, but have confidence in His ability to shape you and mold you and move you forward. Don't let the enemy keep you and suppress you in any discouragement or despair. Right now, my favorite song that I am listening to on repeat is Light a Fire. This line specifically from the song just speaks to me right now. He says, "Light a fire the world can't burn out. Fan the flame till nothing between us remains. My life is an altar to you." How, friends, are you humbling yourself today to allow God to shape you and show you what is keeping you from Him and His work He has for you? How are you showing confidence in His ability to do so and His ability to do it in you and use you? Fill your mind and your heart with His word, and He will show you. Have a great day, friends. You have been listening to Beyond Believing with Katie Ann. If you have enjoyed any of what you have heard today, if anything I have shared has helped you in any way, please take just a very quick minute to leave me a 5-star review or rating on your podcast platform of choice. I share all of this content with you for free so you can have it. So if you can, in turn, let me know how you have benefited from this. And if you would like to hear me share about a specific tool or struggle you are experiencing in your post-divorce journey as a Christian woman, please contact me. I would love to hear from you. And if you would like to hire me to speak at an event or work with you, please reach out to me at the email in my show notes. Thanks for listening.